It's Dee on the spot.
Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to my guest here today, I want to remind you to give us a like and subscribe down below if you appreciate this content. We really thank you. We have Brian Fulks he's the vocalist from the band The Lucid Archetype. Brian, how you doing today?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. So why don't you give the audience here a little bit of a background? What inspired you to start being a musician? What influences do you have, and what you're up to currently?
Okay. So I've been involved in music pretty much as long as I can remember. I started playing around junior high. Formed a band with some friends, just kind of covering some stuff. Wrote a couple very elementary level songs. Really just enjoyed doing a lot of that. Joined a metalcore band straight out of high school and kind of ran that train for a few years. Started off predominantly playing guitar and then kind of transitioned that into vocals. I really enjoyed doing vocals. Just enjoyed that. Took a break from that for a few years. I was just getting out of school and really just kind of focused on work. Worked for quite a few years before deciding to get back in music. When I decided to get back in music, I came across Matt. Matt had posted some stuff looking for a vocalist. He had an instrumental little solo project that he was trying to turn into a band. So I hollered at him and we set up like a little audition. He had this concept EP that he'd written, and it was talking. He had these different. Man, I'm stumbling over my words. He had these. Themes for every song that he'd written, and then he wanted us, or whoever was trying out, to write lyrics to kind of fit that theme. If you did decent at the lyric writing part, then you'd move up to the next little phase of actually vocally auditioning. I made it through the written part, and he gives me his address so I can come hang out and track some vocals. I plug it in, and the dude lives like 3 hours away. So I almost called it quits right then, and instead I decided, like, what the heck? What's the worst that could happen? So I drive to this strange town, and I knock on this stranger's door that I've never met. And Matt opens the door. We hung out. I met some of his friends. Actually crashed there that night. Next day, we spent a good portion of the day tracking. He liked what he heard. He offered me the spot, and from there we just kind of continued writing. I went on to write lyrics for the rest of that EP. We were under the name Only the Strong then. We decided that really wasn't a good vibe for us. Kind of has like a whole, I don't know, tough guy feel, and we're really definitely not tough guys. So he had this little tentative title for a song he was working on called The Lucid Archetype, and we were like, I really like that. So we changed our name to The Lucid Archetype. We then wrote the EP 2.0, which is out now. He wrote it musically, I wrote it lyrically. We tracked it with a guy that was doing stuff here locally. It was just, he and I at the time decided afterwards we wanted to try to expand the band, add more members, maybe work on doing live shows and stuff. Came across a guy locally, added him as a drummer. We started playing shows, did that for a few months before we ended up parting ways. We've since added Taylor on drums, and he is phenomenal, and we love him. So we're currently working on continuing to do live music, working on writing some new stuff, having some input from a drummer on the drums portion of things. So just kind of excited about where things are going to go.
Yeah, that's great. So, do you guys find it hard being a three-piece band to kind of explore as much musically as you would maybe if you were a four-piece band? Do you have any difficulty with that?
Not really. Well, I say that like we've never been a four-piece band. So there was a brief stint where we were a four-piece band, but that's a different story. Really, so far everybody's been very good with criticism. If Matt writes something and I hate it, I just tell him I hate it, and he goes back and he does something different. If I'm kind of vibing a particular thing, I'll tell him like, hey, what would you think about doing this? And even if it's something that he likes, if everybody's not happy, we continue working on it. And the same goes for my stuff vocally. If I do something that I'm super proud of and the rest of the band doesn't like it, then we're honest with each other. We put our feelings aside. We don't get, dick hurt about it. And we just try to focus on like, what's going to be the best thing for this sound. So, one thing that really helps is, we're kind of always talking to each other about, different bands. If there's something that's come out that we really like, I try to pass it on to Matt. Taylor sends stuff to us, vice versa. And just trying to kind of like broaden what we're taking in, I feel like has a pretty big influence on what we're putting out. Yeah. So far things have just kind of felt natural with, minus those few times that I was like, it's gotta be heavier. For the most part, stuff just comes naturally. It feels right. It feels good. And we just kind of go with that.
Now, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your job, your job, because a lot of people don't have that type of job that are into music that you have, and I think it brings a great deal of experience or otherwise knowledge and life experiences that you can all put into your music really good.
So I'm a nurse. I work at the local children's hospital. My technical job is I'm an ECMO specialist. ECMO is basically like a heart and lung bypass machine. So it's essentially life support. So in my day-to-day life, I am taking care of children that are on life support. Fortunately, that's not something that happens all the time. When there are no kids in the state requiring life support, then I am working as a nurse in one of the ICUs. I've been a nurse for 9 years now, and I've been here at the Children's Hospital for about 7 of those years.
Wow. So definitely having to deal with like very tough things, the stuff that you might see there. Do you think that influences you like lyrically and musically as kind of like an outlet of some of the stuff that you see?
It can. I haven't really delved much into the work life with our current music. It's something that I've talked about doing, but I just haven't quite gotten there. It is something that like inspires writing periodically. With smartphones and stuff, everybody has a notepad handy. You don't have to rely on having a pen and paper. If a thought pops into mind, you just jot it down. So everything that comes with, taking care of really, really sick kids is, stuff pops into my mind. I jot it down. I don't always use it. I've rarely used any of that for music, but it has inspired a lot of different thoughts.
Did that also kind of inspire you to kind of get back into music, kind of like seeing the unfortunate things that can happen to especially kids, and then kind of realizing that life is precious and life is short, and that you kind of wanted to just say like, hey, I need to get back into music because who knows, tomorrow that could be me.
Yeah, pretty much. I was, you come into things like with these bright ideas of you're gonna change the world, you're gonna do all of these awesome things, and for the longest time, like work was my life. That's where I got my excitement. That's where I got my joy out of life. It will beat you down, and it took its toll on me. It's very difficult to keep your head up sometimes when you're dealing with stuff that shouldn't happen. Nobody should have to see their kid in that situation, and you take that home with you. So, yeah, I was kind of going through that and really, really just missed music. I'm always listening to stuff, but I miss being a part of it, and really it was just kind of like and I've got to get out and do this. Like I need that joy in my life. I need something to kind of like brighten up all of this, sad stuff, or if stuff's going to be sad, I need an outlet for it.
Yeah. So when you guys were first forming, what was the biggest struggle that you guys had as a band, and how did you guys overcome it?
Our biggest struggle, I would say, has been and still is the fact that, we all live in kind of different areas. Taylor's pretty close to me. He's close to an hour away. Matt is, close to 3 hours away. So really just finding time with everyone's work and traveling to get together, to physically get together and practice. We try to make the best of our time. just, chatting online. We chat on, the little Facebook Messenger all the time. We're always working on stuff. Matt, I feel like, is always tracking something. He puts something in Dropbox. We try to check it out, give our critique on it, and move forward and just utilize the time that we have away as best as we can. So when we come together, it's really just kind of ironing things out. We're not having to really focus on like trying to make a song work or try to work on writing. We do that in our free time, and then try to just come together and see, like, does the finished product work? Is this something that we can be show ready for? And then like kind of doing some polishing touches when we're all together. What should the drums do here? It's been fantastic having Taylor in the band, because prior to that it was Matt programming the drums in, and Matt's not a drummer, neither am I. So now that we have someone that is a real legit drummer that can come in and be like, oh hey, let's do this, let's throw this fill in there, it really kind of gives it more of a natural feel. And I think that drums were kind of one of our weak spots earlier on. So just managing our time good and working on continuing to put new stuff out. We spent a lot of time not putting anything new out because we were just focusing on like the live aspect of things, getting people up to speed so that we can play live. Now I think we're back to a point to where it's like, let's write some stuff, let's get some new stuff out, put it out there.
Do you think that since your band uses social media a ton just to communicate with each other in order to get like songs done or get ideas done, do you think that's overall helped you when it comes to promotion on social media? It just makes you guys so much more familiar with the platform? Somewhat.
Social media is great for promotion and such, but it's also a bit of a crutch. We predominantly promote on Facebook, and we share, Facebook and Instagram. We'll share our events on Facebook. You might, do an ad or something to kind of get people that like similar things. But ultimately, a lot of the times that's where it stops. You don't see a whole lot of like printing flyers and heading to the local Hot Topic or wherever people are that might like this sort of stuff and having like actual interaction. So it's kind of a blessing to have that and to be able to use that. And since we are on it all the time, it is easier. But we definitely could be doing better with like our actual human interaction, instead of just relying solely on the internet to do our job for us.
So when you guys meet to practice, is it usually at your place, or is it or how do you guys kind of like rotate? So like some person might have to drive 3 hours one time, and then another person might have to drive to there that time. How does that work?
Predominantly, it's been at my place. I've got an extra bedroom. We can kind of just close ourselves off and try to not disturb the rest of the house or the neighborhood that much. Every once in a while, we'll load up and head to Matt's. He's the furthest away. This last time we got together, we actually met at Taylor's, which is, about an hour for me. I don't know, 2 hours for Matt. So it's predominantly my place, but, it might be nice to share some of that burden a little bit. The majority of the equipment is at my place, but since we've really worked on our in-ear mix and such, for actually having a practice, pretty much we need our rack for our in-ear stuff and drums. And so like we don't have to set up, you don't have to set up a bunch of cabs. You don't have to set up PA speakers. So we could practice really anywhere now. Whereas in the past we had to lug everything around. So I had to load stuff in a trailer and pull the trailer a couple hours with terrible gas mileage. So it was just kind of the easier route to have everyone come to me. But now that things are simpler, maybe we will start sharing that burden a little bit.
Yeah. So, we're talking about themes earlier on in the interview. When you guys first started, they had one of the guys kind of had some themes that you reached out to and you really enjoyed. But what are the themes? Have they changed as of recently since you guys have been in the band for a while? And what do you think you guys mainly like to sing about?
So the first EP that Matt had the little concept for was really about like the rise and fall of mankind. So that was interesting and a bit of a challenge for me because I'm used to just like picking what I want to write about and then writing about it, where he already had like, this song's about this song's about that. So then I had to take whatever his thoughts were and then try to make them my thoughts and then write about that as if I'm the person that came up with the idea initially. So that was I enjoyed it. It was a hell of a challenge to just get into that mindset. So since then, after finishing that EP and moving on to stuff, it's mostly just been, me writing about what I want to write about. I'll talk to the guys and say, man, this is kind of what I'm feeling. I'm thinking about, kind of going down this route or whatever. And they'll say like, I dig it or I don't dig it. But for the most part, like, they'll write a song, Matt will write a riff or something. And I just kind of go with what pops into my head. Sometimes it's something I've already written about. Sometimes I kind of take that and I start from scratch. The majority of our songs have, I hate to say sci-fi things, influences, because like there would be conspiracy theorists and such out there that would argue like it's not science fiction, it's science fact. That's an entirely different argument. Yeah. We'll say sci-fi for now so that no one like comes and locks me away. We'll say sci-fi. And then like a lot of a bit of like political and religious undertones as well. Just stuff that's really interesting to me. Ultimately, a lot of our stuff is kind of just about like the shortcomings of people. You really want to try to push people to do better, but everyone's so focused on whatever's directly in front of them, not so much like the greater good. So there's a lot of a lot of the subject matter really has to do with people just being so self-absorbed that they can't look beyond their own bubble to see, what's happening around them, the hurt other people are going through, the struggles of everyone.
Yeah. That's what I really enjoy, because music doesn't really tell stories so much anymore that like it used to, like back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. You had songs that really had meaning, and they could be like cautionary tales, or you like actually kind of learn lessons out of it. But I really appreciate what you guys are doing, because that's definitely something that I think needs to make a comeback, because it's great to listen to that. How have you found the overall responses to your music has been since you guys formed the band?
I would say pretty good. We somehow managed to make a song from our EP 2.0. One of those tracks ended up making it onto a pretty big Spotify playlist, and got us like quite a bit of exposure out of nowhere. It was the weirdest thing. It didn't make much sense. There were plenty of tracks on there that just blew us away, and it was just kind of like, how did this happen? I don't know. I still really don't know to this day, but it was pretty sweet. So we got a pretty good response from that. Overall, I think that the people that like this somewhat style have been very, uplifting with their response. We've heard some pretty good compliments. There's the occasional person that's like just not feeling it or just wants to be a troll or whatever. So you take the good with the bad. There's been a few people that are like, I love the music, but I hate the vocals. And so, on that note, we recently re-released 2.0 as an instrumental. So that'll be hitting the whole interwebs here shortly, and we've got physical copies. So if you like what Matt's doing, you're not quite vibing what I'm doing, it's going to be okay. We'll still hook you up. But overall, people have been pretty good.
Yeah. Have you found it sort of challenging to make your band well known, other than being like getting that Spotify list? Because one thing that I found, I'm up in Minneapolis, or close to Minneapolis, and I found that there's a huge metal scene up here that I would have never guessed. Everyone thinks about Minnesota, Minneapolis, I think about like Prince and Bob Dylan. But what is the dominant genre down in Arkansas, or down where you live?
Gosh, so I will say I feel like the majority of the shows that we play end up being like hardcore shows. That's kind of what has been coming through here. Outside of like metal, I feel like the area has like a pretty good, like rock or indie scene. There's definitely quite a bit of like rap and hip hop going on around here. As far as like progressive-ish metal or gent or whatever you want to call it. There's not a ton of that going on. So we're usually like the odd man out in playing shows, and it's kind of weird. We're either considerably lighter than everyone else that's playing, or we're a tad bit heavier. But we try to just like switch it up to where there's a little bit of something for everything. It has been a little awkward for us, just in that a lot of the shows are a little bit more hardcore, so people are expecting that, and then we get up there and you've got like, this song sounds like a video game track, and there's clean singing. Oh my god! So it's been interesting. We still have managed to to meet some super cool people that actually still like kind of like us, or at least aren't like dicks to us. So that's really nice. But outside of the local area, gosh, it's tough to get your stuff out there and really gain any traction, because there's so much available all the time. If you're not putting out content regularly, you're falling behind. And that's kind of where we've landed, is in the whole falling behind part. We really spent a large amount of time working on getting live show ready, and it kind of put us behind on writing, but we are getting back on that horse. We're working on writing some new stuff. We really want to work on continuing to put new content out. We released a track not long ago with a lyric video, and it's done pretty well. We're working on another release right now, and then some future stuff. So it's just, I don't know, getting people to continually listen to you when everything is available all the time is a challenge. So I feel pretty honored that we actually have a decent amount of people that listen to us on Spotify regularly, when there's everything in the world to be listening to. So that's always humbling.
Yeah. One of the big things that we like to talk about here is performing live, kind of like the high and the thrill that you get out of it. It's always been described as like a drug, not unlike any drug that you could ever take. It's kind of like, it's the reason why most bands exist, is to just have that thrill, and being able to like work on songs, especially with you guys, with the long commutes that you guys have to take in order to get to practicing or get to shows. What does that mean to you personally when you look out into the crowd and see everyone like enjoying your music, or just being able to play in front of people? What is that feeling like for you specifically?
It feels really cool. It's the feeling has gotten quite a bit better. Initially, we were so focused on, okay, we got to set up. Is the in-ear stuff right? Is our backing tracks, are they going to work? Our first show that we played live, we were a ridiculous amount of time late because we ran into every single problem we could with our backing tracks. We're a 3-piece band, and we play, roughly what 5 people would play, with an occasional person handling like some synth or something. So there's a lot to set up, there's a lot to tear down, and there's a limited amount of us. So our first couple shows, we were really just stressed by the time that we played, of just, getting ready to play. As time's gone on and we've simplified our in-ear mix, I've gotten more familiar with the DAW and everything. We've been able to just focus more on enjoying ourselves, and that has been phenomenal. Like we're still not to the point to where a lot of people in the audience like know our songs, to the point to where people are really like singing along. But occasionally there's someone like headbanging or something. We look out and we see a lot of head bobbing, and that's always nice. But getting to the point to where you can just work on performing your music, and instead of being all stressed out about it, has just been, it's been so fun. You get to focus on the emotion that comes with it, like the points that you're trying to convey, and you get to really think more of it as a performance and less of just like a crap, okay, it's time that we start. So that part has been really neat. We just get to do we get to do what we want with it now, and that I'm really, really happy about that. All of us are getting more comfortable on stage, and just really kind of trying to come into our own and develop, what are our stage personas. We don't want to go for like this super corny, everything's choreographed all the time thing. But, you know, kind of deciding like what are some good spots where like obviously everything's kind of grooving or whatever, and then just working on the spectacle of a performance instead of just being a bunch of lame ducks up there just chilling. You know, if we were animals as leaders, we'd be able to pull that off because they're phenomenal and people just go to watch that spectacle. We've got to work a bit harder at the physical performance of it to make up for not being as awesome as they are.
So I was going to ask you next about like any traditions that you had before the show, but before I get to that, you said we always love to hear first show stories, like your first performance as this band, and you mentioned that everything that could go wrong on your time-wise went wrong. We don't want to be embarrassing or anything, but could you go into the specifics of what happened that night? We love first show stories.
Man, I would love to. Okay, so I wasn't really familiar with the DAW that I've been using. Matt uses Cubase, so I started using Cubase simply so that he could like kind of help me as I went with figuring out like how the heck do I do this. So, you know, we got the set list built up, and you know, we were working on, you know, had everything kind of just ready. I was using a different interface than I'm using now, and that interface only had 1/4-inch jack outputs, like your instrument cables or speaker cables, not your XLRs. So we get to the venue and they're like, oh yeah, we can only take XLRs, and we've only got 2 direct boxes to convert your you know, your 1/4-inch cables so that we can actually use them. So I'm already struggle bussing with like how to use this thing. So I have to go in and very frantically like try to throw together a stereo mix to send to them so that we can have backing tracks. For a brief period in time, like I just wanted to panic, and I really felt like we're not going to be able to play. Like our backing tracks aren't working. I couldn't get any signal to come, like any audio to come out when actually we got stuff kind of somewhat routed right. And I had I think I had turned the last time that program was running, I was using a different interface. And so when you do that, you've got to go back in and reset every output back up. And I hadn't done that, so it was, you know, it wasn't sending out anything. I finally figured that out. And then, you know, I threw together a quick mix of everything and sent. So the levels aren't right. Like and there's nothing anyone can do about it. You know, I don't know what it sounded like out there, but I know it had to sound like garbage. I mean, you've got a second guitar, you've got a bass, you've got some backing vocal harmonies and some synthy things, all just jumbled into like 2 signals, and nothing's leveled out. I was so stressed. It was really, really difficult to even enjoy the show after that, because I knew how terrible it sounded and how awesome we wanted it to sound. Your first show, you want to come in and you just want to like kick ass and everyone be like, who was that? I need to know who that is. I want them to play again. It was at least a half hour late, and we were the first band. Everyone was super nice to us, but you could tell they were like, we got to get this show on the road. So we were over the entire, like our entire set time late, and they had every right to just be like, look guys, your time's up, you can't play, we're on a schedule. But they still let us play. They let us play our entire set, and people were actually like nice about it. One of the sound guys at Vino's, he gave us tons and tons of helpful info of like, this is what you should do to help like this not happen again. And we took that advice to heart. We changed our in-ear or our rack setup like pretty much immediately after that. And I tried to get a lot more familiar with the ins and outs of what we were doing, and just make that better. So it's gotten better each time. We're to the point to where setting up isn't that big of a deal. but trying to tear down quickly for the next band can be a bit of a hassle just with the three of us.
Yeah. It seems like it's a good experience that your first performance kind of went like that, because I mean basically you tell yourself we're only going to go up from here on out. I mean that we kind of got it all the way. We won't have to. It won't be like we have like 10 perfect shows and then we have one really bad show and then that kind of upsets us because we're like, oh, are we doing something wrong? It's like it's always good to kind of start out like that. But when it comes to shows, do you guys do any specific preparation that you guys have in mind? Are you like superstitious at all? We have some bands where they're like, I have to have a few beers in me, or I have to like have a certain amount of drinks, or we have to stretch, or we all do something together. Do you guys have anything like that, or do you guys just kind of wing it when you get there?
So Matt definitely has to have one beer before going on. We typically get to the venue early enough to where we can all just like comfortably have one or two. I typically will have one or two. I know being a vocalist, they say like, don't drink beer, it's going to dry you out, but I do anyways. So that just kind of like makes things a little bit easier. As far as like traditions, so I read this somewhere and we've started implementing it, and it really just kind of like changes the mood a little bit. So I read somewhere where this band was saying like before they play, like they all look at each other and one of them says, "These bitches need us," and it's hilarious and it's so silly because obviously no one out there needs us, but it changes your mindset as to being like there are people here and they want to hear what we're doing, and so we need to do that. We need to give them that, and it just kind of set your focus a little bit. No one's like, we're definitely not saying it as to trying to be like, oh, people are here to see us, because that's really not the case. But it helps us focus on like, yeah, we're going to do something. We're going to have fun with it, and someone out there is going to like it. So that's really, I guess, our only little like pre-show tradition, other than ensuring Matt has a beer in him before we start.
Yeah, I mean, some people, you got to have it before you get going. Okay, now we get to our most popular part of the podcast, the 5 inside the actor studio-esque questions, which are our fan favorite. And like I said before, once I get up to, I think, podcast 50, I think this is 35, I'm going to add up all the answers and then see who has the most popular choices. So for our first question is, out of all the music that's ever been written in the history of music, basically, what is one song that you personally wish you had come up with, and why?
One song that I wish I would have come up with out of the history of music. Mm-hmm. Gosh, okay, that's a tough one. I think I would probably, out of just pure greed, I would have to look at whatever the highest grossing thing is and just say like, I wish that I would have written Come Together or something, just so that I could live off of that forever.
I think it's Elton John's Candle in the Wind, which is the highest selling one.
Okay, all right. Well, can't mess with Elton.
Yeah, I'll put that one down then.
Gosh, something that I wish that I had written, Burial on the Presidio Banks by This Will Destroy You. Okay. It is just like pure instrumental emotion. I hear that song and it just like it makes my hair stand up on end. I get the chill bumps. I can about guarantee that no one else has said that, but they're a phenomenal band and they deserve so much more exposure than they've gotten. It's like Explosions in the Sky if they had more balls. Mm-hmm. So phenomenal band. They get your emotions going. I love that track. I wish that I would have been smart enough to have written that.
Yeah. All right. So for our second question, out of all the musicians that have ever lived, dead or alive, doesn't matter. You can pick either one. If you could perform one show live with a band or a musician, who would it be and why? One
show live. I feel like if I pick anything other than our genre, I'm looking at just having a huge cluster of, like, are you going to play, progressive metal with Mozart? I don't know. He'd probably be a dick about it. The whole like child prodigy and all. Yeah. I would love to play with, some of the bigger bands that are making waves right now, simply because, they're phenomenal and I would love to be able to see more of them and kind of learn things, but also I mean, that'd be exposure for us. I would be torn right now between playing with the Contortionist or playing with Periphery. I love both of them so much. They both put on phenomenal shows. I think I would probably have to go ahead and say Periphery. They're phenomenal. I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out because, like, they're out of the history of all bands. I choose, like, the biggest progressive or gent band that there is right now. So sorry.
Oh, no problem. We've had plenty of picks where we're just like, oh, that's weird, but it adds more variety to our thing instead of having like 5 bands that everyone would say, which we enjoy. So now, out of all the venues on the planet, if you could play at one venue, where would it be and why?
Gosh, all of the venues. What's that? Is it like Red Rock Amphitheater? Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
It just seems really cool. Like, I don't know. I would like to play that. You got a chill night, stars are out, all these rocks around. That just sounds pretty rad.
Ladies and gentlemen, I forgot to add that Red Rocks has already had 8 votes, so that has been disqualified from the competition because it's already won. It's all right, though. I will add no. I will add Red Rocks this time because I forgot to mention. Okay. But just for everyone's knowledge, this is the last time that you will ever hear the word Red Rocks, other than me speaking it for being disqualified. I got so mad because, like, out of my first 7 people that I had on, like, 6 of them said, like, Red Rocks, and I was like, I gotta come up with something new then, because that's just gonna win the category. So I looked it up, and I was like, oh, shit, like, I actually get why someone would love to perform there. But yeah, I had to take off Red Rocks. I mean, the next closest we got is Madison Square Garden with 3 votes, so I mean, it's like, now Red Rocks has 9, so it's basically, it's gonna win with, like, 15 episodes left before I count. It's in the bag, basically. So Red Rocks, I totally understand why it's awesome. I love Slane Castle out in Ireland would be my choice where I'd play.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. But now we get to the real nitty-gritty. Guilty pleasure song. What is a guilty pleasure song that maybe guys in the band wouldn't know or people that you know in real life wouldn't know? This is where we really get down and dirty.
Dancing Queen by ABBA.
It's a great song, yeah.
The metalcore band I was in back, in the mid 2000s, I always wanted to take a snippet of Dancing Queen and start our set just because it'd be funny. We ended up going with a little bit of September by Earth, Wind and Fire because why not? But yeah, Dancing Queen by ABBA, guilty pleasure. Not really. I don't even think it's a guilty pleasure because I'll just tell people. But like, I don't know, unexpected.
Yeah, especially with movies like Mamma Mia or whatever. It's not really that much of a guilty pleasure. But yeah, I could totally understand. That still isn't top. We had one death metal guy come on who totally looked the part, and then he said that I Want It That Way was his guilty pleasure song, and that still takes the cake. And then we have another guy that said Bop.
Like when that track comes on, you're gonna sing along. So my wife loves stuff like that. So periodically, we end up like her and I singing, Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or whatever. And, everyone, it was not the cool thing for dudes to do. Like at the time, it was like, oh, that's a girl, they were catchy. I think that we're, to the point to where we can all acknowledge they were catchy. Yeah. Justin Timberlake's went on to become, ridiculously successful, and he's super talented. So they were catchy tracks. I think we should all be able to sing them now.
Yeah. So lastly, guilty pleasure genre.
Guilty pleasure, I don't know. That's a tough one. There's not a lot of genres I really feel guilty about. Gosh,
like K-pop or anything.
I'm really having to think on this one because I feel like the majority of what I listen to is whatever my wife is listening to, or like, progressive metal or metalcore. So, guilty genre. Okay. So I don't do this regularly, but every once in a while I like to find like the one Mexican radio station that's coming through and I just put it on and listen to it, and I have no clue what's going on, and I'm unfamiliar with the genre, but it always sounds fun, and it sounds like it should be playing at a party.
Yeah.
Until like Despacito comes on, and then you're like, oh, okay, I've heard this before.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we already kind of mentioned a little bit of the stuff that you can find your band on. You guys have it on Spotify, obviously, and do you guys have like a YouTube? I know you have a Facebook page. We'll leave all the links down below, but where are all the places that people can find your music?
I mean, pretty much anywhere music's found. We're on, Spotify, iTunes. I think we're up on Amazon and Google. We do have our own YouTube channel. Doesn't have a whole lot going on with it. I'm trying to even remember what the link to that is. Can look that up. I can try to multitask here. Yeah, pretty much any place music's being put out or sold, like we more than likely have it there. We have stuff on Bandcamp as well. If you're into that whole like just direct download and stay off of the big platforms.
Oh, and plus it helps you guys out more when people get stuff off Bandcamp, I heard. It
kind of does. They still take their cut of stuff, but like you get that stuff immediately. Whereas with Spotify and iTunes and all of that stuff, like they typically will upcharge things unless you pay for like a premium membership and you can set your own price. So like not many people are going to want to pay $1 for one of our songs, which seems so silly when you got to pay like $1.25 for a soda and a vending machine.
Yeah.
But so we can put our stuff up on Bandcamp for $5 and end up making like $4.25 off of that, instead of somebody having to shell out, I don't know, like $7 or $8 for our EP and us seeing whatever we end up seeing from that. Every once in a while we get like this little bitty check from Spotify plays and sales on the platforms and stuff. So really, Bandcamp's the one that we notice more because we get email alerts like, hey, so-and-so bought this. And then, we have physical stuff up on, we have a Big Cartel page. It's the lucidarchetype.bigcartel.com where you can get our, I think I found it. Sorry about that. Where you can get our, merch, our physical copies of stuff, all that jazz.
Yeah. So do you guys have any upcoming shows that you would like to promote?
We have one show right now that is coming up. It will be, I think it's the 18th. Trying to look and confirm. We just did our first back-to-back shows. We've always been like a one show and then wait a couple weeks or a month. We just played in Little Rock one night, and then we played in Memphis the next night. It was with some good friends of ours in a band called Levels. If you haven't checked them out, do that. They were gracious enough to hook us up with a slot on the Memphis show. But we have a show coming up in Fort Smith at a place that I have never heard of, but I think it's a house show. And it will be, it's August 18th at a place called the Swamp Yard.
Okay.
Never heard of this place, but it should be a fun time. It'll be our first time up anywhere near the Northwest area. So yeah, if you happen to be listening and you are familiar with wherever the Swamp Yard is in Fort Smith, then you should come hang out with us. It'll be fun.
Absolutely. So, do you guys have any music that you guys are working on as well? I thought you said that you're going to release a few singles a little bit later down the line.
Yeah, we've got a single that, if I'm not mistaken, I think that we gave like the final, like everything's good, we're happy with this, today. So we're working on a release for that, kind of deciding like what's the route we want to go. We've got another track that is almost completely done that I've just got to work on like a little bit of vocal patterns and stuff, and try to make it sound less crappy. So we're hoping to get that guy in the works here soon, and then we're actually talking about re-recording one of our tracks off of that EP that Matt put out as an instrumental. There's a track from there that we've been playing live. It is stupid heavy, and we just really enjoy it. So we're actually looking at re-recording it and putting it out. So we're hoping to have, those, along with our current single that we just put out, Null Void. We're hoping to have these other, at least 2 ready in the pretty immediate future. And then from there, working on like a new EP and just try to put out something all together instead of just staggering singles along.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. I mean, we will definitely leave the links to everything down below. I mean, we love sharing everything with our band. And I have 2 final questions here for you, and I ask this to everyone. If someone were to walk up to you on the street and say, like, hey, I'm forming a band, what can I do to make the band really successful? What would be the best piece of advice that you would give that person?
Oh, gosh. I don't know that there's really one piece of advice you could really give. A lot of success, I feel like everybody can kind of tell a lot of success is just like pure dumb luck, or knowing the right people. But I don't know, if you're wanting to make it big and you're wanting to get paid, then you should really not focus on, being a super creative artist, because like what's getting paid and what's big is what's popular. So if you want to make a career out of this, then you've got to look at giving people what they want, and be okay with that. If you want to stay like true to yourself as an artist or whatever, you need to have some sort of side hustle, or it will just, you will remain in obscurity. But like, find what you want to do and do that. Do it the best that you can. Give it your all. Put emotion into it. I personally love when people, like, you can tell people aren't faking it or half-assing it or doing what they feel like everybody wants. I like when people are putting themselves into it, and you can tell that their stuff has substance. So dig deep, find what matters to you, and put that out there, unless you're trying to make a lot of money. And then, ride like the whole, I don't know, radio metal thing, and or get rid of metal altogether and go with like rock. Try to go that route.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and lastly, if you were able to speak to yourself, let's say like 10 years ago, and what advice would you give yourself musically?
I'd probably tell myself, don't stop. Don't take years off of doing this. Stay involved. I spent years not being involved in the local scene here, and I'm still kind of hit or miss with it just because of life and stuff, but stay involved in whatever local scene that you're at. Stay active, always be practicing, always be working on stuff. Sing more. Don't focus on just screaming all the time. Really, like, work on your singing voice, work on your range, your vocal control. And do cardio. I get so winded on stage, and I feel like I'm spending most of my time just like trying to conserve my breath so that I don't pass out. So stay active. 10 year ago, Brian, stay active, work out, do cardio, sing more.
Yeah, I mean, that's great advice. I mean, not that many people think that you need to do all that stuff just to keep your body in shape, but especially being a vocalist, there's a lot of stuff that you have to do. But we'll leave all the links down below, like I said before, to this band. I mean, definitely check these guys out. These guys, I mean, think about it. They have to drive all those ways just to commute, just to get together. That just shows how dedicated they are, and the least that you guys can do is at least give them a check out. I mean, you don't have to like their music, but you should at least, everyone out there that's listening should at least go there and at least listen to their music. You never know, that you might find that they're the best band of all time, or you might find that they're your favorite band, and who knows. So absolutely,
you can get on Spotify for free too.
Yeah, so and get it on Spotify for free. I mean, and if you're really that picky about it, there are plenty of ways to illegally download stuff. I won't mention anything on here, but I mean,
it's up there.
Yeah.
It's up there and out there.
Yeah, the Lucid Archetype. I mean, definitely give these guys a check out. And if you're in the Fort Smith area, go and check these guys out. And you definitely mentioned to me whenever that single comes out, I would be more than happy to plug it on here. Any shows that you guys have or any albums, I mean, I'm more than happy to plug the bands that I have on here. I mean, that's why I do this thing is to help you guys out. And yeah, I mean, are there any last things that you'd like to say before we wrap it up here?
I really appreciate you having me on to do this.
Oh,
thank you so much.
No problem. The pleasure is all mine. So again, Lucid Archetype, go check these guys out. All the links down below. I mean, this is DD on the Spot signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.